Is Linda still there? She texted me.
That was prelude.
Yeah. The open house. This was a good.
So I just wanted to know.
Maybe it was the notice to proceed. Oh yeah, it is to my notice. Okay, as long as we include it all.
Good to see you.
I do kind of remember. I do kind of remember. No.
Okay.
I remember because I had to do different exhibits and say which parts were different.
It's time. Anybody? Keith, all right. Good afternoon. Let's call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, April 23rd. We're here at the City Hall for our regular monthly meeting. We're going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
You good?
Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin. Here. Ms. Albrecht. Mr. Wallace. Here. Mr. Putnam.
Here.
And Mayor Capp.
Here. Okay, we have our agenda, and we're gonna, I'll go ahead and tell you, before we introduce the sheriff, after him, we're gonna take number 16 that's on our item 16 and move it up to number 2. So, we have today, Sheriff Ford, Lake County Sheriff. Not only a good friend, but a good ally to Mexico Beach, and we welcome him here, and wants to say a few words to us, and Sheriff, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today. Mexico Beach is near and dear to my heart. I grew up in Port St. Joe and spent a lot of time here in Mexico Beach as a kid. In fact, if Tommy T's were to have video like they have now, then I probably would not be the sheriff right now. And the mayor was very
Easy.
A lot of good times here, and I was certainly, hurt to see the devastation during Hurricane Michael, but proud to see the way that our community and county came together after Hurricane Michael. And as much as we still have to do, the progress that's been made, I think, has been amazing. Not to say that we don't have a lot of work left to do. I do remember right before the storm, getting communications from the chief about the evacuation situation and being extremely fearful as the storm passed about what could have been here, and was, we came in as fast as we could, and luckily there were some deaths, and that certainly our heart goes out to those families and people. But I think we were fortunate in the respect that we didn't have more loss of life. After the storm, we came in to assist the chief and his department, and brought in the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. I've had deputies here since the storm, but I want to do something a little bit more for the community and for the relationship with the police department and the city of Mexico Beach. Many of you may have met Lieutenant Marty Williams, who ran our operations here, working with the police department after the storm. Back before the financial situation in 2008, 2009, we had a deputy assigned here full time. Steve Peoples was here. He was what was called a community services deputy, and just a person to be in the community, working with the residents, a problem solver, kind of doing what needs to be done, and representing the sheriff's office down here. And I'm pleased to announce today that we're going to be bringing that position back, and I'm going to assign Marty to that position. Brings a wealth of knowledge. He's one of my senior lieutenants at the sheriff's office, so we're not sending you a rookie. He's pretty seasoned. Runs one of my platoons here in the East District. This is Captain Brandon, that runs the East District, which Mexico Beach falls under. So Marty's got a lot of experience. He also would be one of those that would be right beside me on the video at Tommy T's. We went to high school together. So, but Marty is, I think he'll do a good job. He's already got a good relationship with the police department, with the mayor, city manager, and a lot of you in this room. So I'm excited to be able to do that again. It's important to me to be able to do that. He's going to start right now.
All right.
We appreciate the opportunity to work together with y'all.
Thank you so much, we appreciate it. Marty, welcome to it, welcome to Mexico Beach, officially. Officially.
And I'd like to say one more thing. I'd like to thank you for your consideration of the lease on the radio tower. We've been working to get a new countywide public safety law enforcement system. We know what it means here to not be able to communicate, don't we? So we know how important that is. So I think that that'll be coming up on your agenda. And as sheriff, I just appreciate, from a countywide perspective, appreciate your consideration of that to help us get that system built out. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Before you leave, just any questions for the sheriff?
Will you, Lieutenant, will you be working out of our police facilities or
Pretty much.
pretty much?
I'm working with them and everything else.
Okay.
This, my office is parked outside.
Okay.
It's been that way for many years.
All right,
Thank you.
thank y'all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, we're gonna have, as I said, we're gonna take the, I believe it's listed as lease agreement, is that correct?
That's
Or
correct.
cell tower lease, I'm sorry. You folks out there, come on in, Tanya, you gonna,
I can do it. We have anybody from Bay County?
Yeah, David Morgan,
Okay.
Bay County.
Hey, fun. You're next. We're up. This agreement is for this, tower is for communications for emergency services. As you know, there are times when our service is spotty, and this upgrades us to that 800, megahertz service. The proposed location of the tower, you'll see it in your packet, is just outside the city workyard. The agreement with the county, is the city would not charge any rent for this tower, because we would be paying that rent because the tower supports all of Bay County, so we would be paying a portion of it. So in exchange, the agreement from the county is the city, if we host any other additional wireless providers on this tower, then we would, the city would get that rent, which I think is a good deal for the city. It's a 250-foot tower, it's a tall tower, and this is to support our communications that the sheriff just mentioned. We will be applying for a development order, following the city's land development regulations. We don't really have a lot of, I'm not sure, Nick, if we have any regulations specific to cell towers.
We don't, and the zoning here is public institutional, so this tower is almost entirely for public safety purposes. So that's how it fits within that location. But, yeah, there'll be a development order to pass this lease in order to do the planning approval.
what's the projected time to have us a tower?
It'll take just through the state permitting and also federal permitting, probably at least like 6 months, or probably 6 months, and hopefully we can accelerate a little bit more to actually start construction, so definitely within a year to be 100% complete.
No, they've already surveyed the site. Surveyors were out last week. So from a city perspective, we're ready whenever the county's ready.
And the site's just a couple hundred feet from the location of the other cell towers,
Right.
so as far as impact to the community, it's in an area that's already got something like this.
Is there anything from the county, any comments, or, I mean,
We just appreciate y'all considering this.
okay, this needs a formal approval, so Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, any questions or comments, or from anyone, or any of our citizens, council members? Call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin? Yes. Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes. Gentlemen,
We appreciate it.
build the tower.
All right, appreciate
All right,
it.
you
We're
got
on it. Thank you, guys. so much.
Absolutely. Okay, thank y'all for coming over. Yes, sir. All right, now we'll start the agenda packet. First is ordinance 720 for first reading. Do we have a motion to read? Motion to read. Second. We have a motion to second. Questions? Well, I've got a few questions. And under, that's not, I guess the second page of the ordinance, down under the first bold, it says general requirements. First of all, is it not so that the residential platted properties are DEP exempt from stormwater?
They're exempt from the rules of chapter 1725.
Okay, one of the concerns I have is about the easement. The language here says that a permanent easement must be recorded by the crossing property owner to ensure conveyance and blah, 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 on and on and on. That, I guess, what is the need for that?
Well, we just actually had that situation, where, a new development, we're currently dealing with it. I mean, it was a home that was permitted new construction prior to the storm. The developer has the stormwater running across the back of someone else's property.
Is that on Oak?
Yes.
Is it Oak? Yeah. So we've been working with the developer to help him solve that. But this is what we're trying to avoid, so the city doesn't get in the middle of these types of situations. If the stormwater, if you're gonna run your stormwater, if that's the natural flow of the land, then they need an easement or something from that property owner to avoid, I mean, you can't run your stormwater off on somebody else. So this is what we're trying to avoid.
Well, that's an extreme situation on Oak.
It's not uncommon, believe it or not.
Yeah, we've actually got another one of these situations over on 386 in Magnolia.
Where you have such a height variation from the front of the house to the back of the house? Well, here, and there may be extreme, I'm sure there are extreme, but to require an easement, or recorded easement, what width of easement, what does the easement, what are we asking for?
It would depend on what the stormwater, requirements were. Or are.
I think a good example would be the Oak Avenue. In that situation, a 10-foot easement will be required. Cause that's when the water's really coming down, that's the area that it's taking up and shooting across.
Well, people aren't gonna voluntarily give easements. I mean, that's a big deal on the title search, and you have a recorded easement on your property. If we can work it out with them, but as far as putting it in writing that a permanent easement must be recorded, I don't support that.
What would be the option? We would allow them to run their stormwater across someone else's lot without that? What would be the alternative?
I think there would have to be some extreme, Oak is an extreme situation where you have a slab on grade house as a backdoor neighbor, and the front of that house is at the elevation of the front road. I mean, there's not a lot of those.
One of the things we did, Mayor, to try to help with this is there's an exemption where, and I was trying to find that in here, where you could, use your gutters and pipe it to the city storm drain. Because really, what falls on the land naturally, and Dina can jump in anytime, that's not what we're worried about. We're worried about now you've got the impervious, and the water there. If the owner can take that water from their gutters to the city storm drain, which can be done, then the natural flow is not what we're worried about. We're worried about the additional caused by the structure.
I take it you and Philip think it's a good idea, this ordinance.
Well, we all
You're
think it's a good idea,
recommending
which is
that.
why, yeah, this is definitely recommended, just looking at the issues that we've seen.
But what if they don't sign the easement, don't give them a CO? that what we're gonna do?
Well, what we're doing now, and I explained this in the last meeting, is we're working with the owners up front before the home is constructed to solve this. So the issue with Oak, we weren't doing that, the city wasn't doing that, so the home was constructed and then they had to deal with stormwater. So now, when the development order is issued, Philip is, working with them, the engineer, our engineer gets involved, EPCI's engineer gets involved, and we help them solve it up front. So we're not dealing with this on the back end. But if their only option is to run it across a bordering neighbor's property, then we're saying if that's your only option, then you're gonna need an easement to do that. We can't give them permission to run their stormwater over someone else's property, but we did put in there the exemption with the gutter system. You can pipe it to the city storm drain and eliminate that.
I'm just saying that for me, to require an easement, what is the option, what's gonna happen when they say, look, I'm not gonna,
Possible
those
alternative,
people aren't gonna sign a 10-foot easement.
possible alternative, if there was room on the lot to do it, would be to have a stormwater management facility that controlled the rate of runoff to be equal or less than pre-development.
And we did that with Oak. We attempted that.
Then the runoff's exactly the same as it was prior to, and in most cases, anywhere else wouldn't necessarily require an easement, or any kind of easement, because it's no more, it's no greater than what was there prior.
Well, that's just not what this says. What this says is that it must be a recorded easement by the
If you're
Crossing
gonna run
property.
it across your bordering neighbor, but there are other alternatives. There, you can use your gutters, get it to the city storm drain, or as Lance said, you can do some type of retention there on the property, which we attempted to do on the
I
other
saw that,
property.
I know Oak, I've got a
That's,
lot of history with Oak, so I'm not, I mean, he had all that worked out when he started his house, and then after it was completed, all that got changed.
no,
Yes, it did. He had
there
it
was no
worked out.
stormwater plan provided to the city prior
He spoke
to.
to the building department at length about what to do. He was told what he did was fine, then it wasn't okay. When he couldn't get a CO, he was stopped after he had done that. I know, you don't have privy knowledge, but I'm telling you, what he did is exactly what he was told to do when he started construction. So I'm a little bit impatient with what happened there based on what now he was required to do in order to get the CO.
Well, yeah, and the bordering neighbor isn't happy either. So, you know, so what we're trying to do is to keep the city out of the middle of these situations.
I
So
understand.
we're working on it up front with the owners, so we're not in the same situation.
I'm not against stormwater and trying to work, I'm thinking that if we leave that language in there, what is gonna happen when they say, I'm not gonna give you an easement?
Then they have other alternatives. As Lance said, they can do on-site detention, or they can use a gutter system and get it to the city's.
But, I mean,
Stormwater
this wouldn't be an option where he's doing. There is no city system.
He could get it to
For
the
him to
street,
get
but we understand stormwater's a problem in our city.
But I think that's an excessive step
What,
if we work with it. I think we should not we should not require an easement, because I don't think we're gonna get one. And then, there's cases where if we're gonna hold them to the feet to the fire, like for an example, guttering, that can't work there.
so what do you suggest in this situation?
That we do the best we can with a developed city and people building their house to ensure that the situation like this, we just do the best. I think that's what we've done there. We required him to dig, or that he dug a retention ditch. When it overflows, it's gonna flow to that low cypress knee swamp that's there, and there's nothing gonna change that. In my opinion, getting an easement, I think that's asking property owners a lot. Must do that.
Well, if that's what they want to, if you're gonna run what the ordinance says, if that's your option, to run your stormwater across a neighbor's property, you have to have an easement.
Well, I
The
may be
city's not
the
gonna
only
allow
one
you
that's
to do it.
against requiring that. I don't like that language. I don't support that. Requiring an easement, because I don't think you're gonna get them, and I think it's going to be, I've talked to Lonnie many times. He's not interested in giving an easement.
Dina, the suggestion about having an on-site stormwater treatment facility, pond, maybe a swale, how feasible is that for the typical size lots, the typical size house? Is there space to do that, or is that pond gonna be too large for that to be a good option?
It depends on the lot. I mean, if you have a really small lot, it's probably not very feasible. But there are other options too. You could have a sump pump and pump it to the street or the ditch. So, yeah, typically, I think it would be a challenge to
They
do
need to have
on-site
something on a
detention.
larger and size lot, probably.
Yeah, if you had a larger lot, you might be able to do that.
I'm gonna leave that, cause unless somebody else wants to talk about these. But on B, it just explained to me, I'm not sure I understand what I'm reading there. We're saying that if you have an area that's 9,000 square feet of building and 4,000 square feet, then that's the threshold for requiring a stormwater management plan?
Do you know what you?
Is that right?
Yeah, that's the state requirement, so
Right.
anything combined, 9,000 square feet of building space with 4,000 square feet of parking or drives, anything with those numbers and below, the state does not require stormwater management facility.
What about one on a commercial zone lot?
It's the same whether you're residential, commercial, so if you're commercial and you're under those thresholds, you're exempt.
Cities follow with that as well.
You're exempt from state and
From
then the
state,
city.
Okay. And one reason I asked specifically, one lot that Jason Adams owns was required to retain stormwater prior to any comp plan changes or the storm or anything like that. Is that requirement gone now if he's under that threshold?
I mean, I think that was, the intent was if you were under the state threshold, then the city's required.
You just
Well,
have
that's
to,
what
then he
Does
just
that-
follows the city's ordinance.
I wanna revisit that, so, using Jason Adams, he's under this threshold. So he is not required to retain stormwater on his property.
He's not held to the state law, but he's held to city ordinance.
Get into the road.
Yeah, get into the road,
So
basically.
prior to the storm, the development order like that went through Panhandle, and that's where this requirement was through many back and forth, so the Panhandle was obtained. So, and I just wanna see, cause he's gonna do something else with half of the property he was gonna do prior to. So he just gotta get his stormwater to the road if he's under that threshold now, no stormwater ponds are
So
required.
he was above the threshold before, now he's
No,
gonna be
no,
under.
he was under the state threshold,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Panhandle wouldn't approve, and Mel at that time wouldn't approve. It wouldn't approve it without full 100-year attenuation.
Yeah, I can't.
I just wanna verify that's not gonna be required.
Well, nothing's been adopted yet, but that's how this
Okay.
proposed rule is set up. And the current rules, you can see them in here, they're crossed out, they basically, all these commercial properties just say follow state law, they're just referencing the state law for
Now,
because things have changed.
There is sometimes, so with this, Lance, if you're over, I think it's, if you're over 50% impervious, the state does kick you into having to do the 2-year
Right.
storm for erosion control. You may have to attenuate a really small event if you're over 50% impervious, but again, I think the intent of this is to follow state law, so if you're exempted under the
Okay.
state, you'd be exempt under the city
Perfect.
for attenuation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you had a question?
I just, a question, Mayor, Tanya. I know, you talking about this ordinance, you said now the city is coming up and making people put their lots up so you don't flood other people's neighborhoods, and we're doing that. And the mayor said that this gentleman got permission to do what he did, and now he has a problem. Is there anything that you guys can do to solve that problem for him? I mean, you talk about sump pumps. Can the city do that, put a couple of pumps in and get that water out of there? I mean, I can see what
Yeah.
the mayor's saying, that's heartburn. If you came to the city and the city said you could do this, and now all of a sudden you can't.
Well, I will say this, we've been working with that owner for weeks now on different scenarios. I have nothing that says the city approved anything prior to that, we didn't even look at stormwater, and I understand that that's, you know, what the mayor's been told, but the city is working to help solve it. But, no, the city wouldn't be responsible for putting sump pumps
No.
on his property.
Any other questions on ordinance, Yeah, 720. Okay, we have a motion and a second to read. Call the roll.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
No.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
Ordinance 720, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, amending the land development code to revise the stormwater requirements, requiring drainage as specified or drainage easement, requiring swale drainage, rewriting the rule for elevation of the lowest finished floor, requiring a master drainage plan for multi-phase developments, providing rules for violations, repealing stormwater amendments provided by ordinances 719, and repealing ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, providing for severability, and an immediate effective date.
Before we leave that, I want to ask again, if a person doesn't sign, there's nothing in the language. If they don't get an easement, all we're going to say is that there's other options.
Well, the options are in here, they're in the ordinance.
They're in there, but they aren't practical to, like. So we would, I guess, the ultimate result would be that we would not see other property.
It would really be at the development order stage where this would be handled.
Up front.
If it couldn't be addressed appropriately, I don't think we would ever issue the building permit to let things get far along.
It just doesn't say that. But,
Right.
okay.
Because of being in the land development code, it's really tied to development orders, not the building permits. Building permits
Okay.
are primarily state.
Good enough. All right, next is the second reading of ordinance 715. Do I have a motion to read?
Motion to read. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Questions or comments about ordinance 715? Anyone besides me? Yes, sir.
Ordinance 715 is a big deal for me because this, what I'd like you guys to do is consider striking the word primary, and also back on reading in section D. This effectively eliminates, in the old LDR, there was a provision that allowed you to have a 5-foot setback for an auxiliary building. If you wanted to build a tool shed or a storage building, you could set it 5 feet from your rear property line. I did that last August. I had 12 feet of space, 27 feet from the rear of my house to my property line. So if you do the math, that comes up 12 feet. Now, under the new LDR, that has been changed to 10 feet. So now I've got the option of putting up a 6 or 7 foot storage building. If you go out and do a spot check around Mexico Beach and look at the lots, this virtually eliminates the ability to put up an auxiliary building because of that 5 foot of difference in the rear setback. So now, I went 4 weeks ago to the company that built my building last August, recontracted with them to do the same thing. Then I came back and said, well, we got a new LDR. I went and reviewed it. The setback, that exemption, the 5 foot exemption, is no longer there. It's now 10. So I've got, I'm dealing with a company that said we can't do this. And they've replied back to me, well, we've got several people that are already in Mexico Beach that's under these measurements that are contracted buildings. Well, you can't do it. So this 5 foot setback, the change of 5 feet, will virtually eliminate, unless you've got a very deep lot. Now, I've got a very modest sized home across the street. but it's centered in my lot, which is 100 by 100. That's not a small lot compared to what a lot of lots are in Mexico Beach. But this provision is going to almost eliminate auxiliary buildings.
I'd like to respond to that. So you were on planning and zoning board, so you know that the planning and zoning board wanted to get those out of the setback because of all other issues. This ordinance right here, you can still apply for a variance for your auxiliary building. This doesn't change that. That's something you can continue to do. What this is doing, this ordinance, is just for all those folks that were on had non-conforming structures prior to the storm, their primary structure. It allows the council to, with this ordinance, provide a blanket. You can go back to the same footprint rather than requiring every one of those individuals to come in and apply for a variance and the city to have to post it and go through the variance process.
Yeah, but it does not, it specifically excludes auxiliary buildings.
And I think it should exclude auxiliary buildings. If you have those individual examples, they can still come in and apply for a variance. If you've got a hardship of your lot, you can still do that. But I don't think that the intent, and I would recommend against making this ordinance apply to every accessory structure that's out there. Because there are some, I mean, we're looking at the primary structure, those homes that were destroyed, businesses that were destroyed, allowing them to go back to the original footprint. But we would essentially be changing what was recommended by P&Z and approved by the council early on. This is just for those primary structures, and that was the intent of this ordinance.
I would suggest also, if you were interested in that type of concept, you would consider still requiring those accessory buildings to be inside the footprint of the prior main structure. Otherwise, if you basically are allowing limited setbacks for accessory buildings, it's hard to even determine where they used to be. They're not as permanently tied down. You're not going to see a lot of concrete foundations. It'd be difficult to even fact check that situation.
Right.
But if it were that you could put whatever you want inside the prior footprint of your main structure, that would be manageable.
Why do we go to 10 instead of 5?
I don't recall that. I know there was an exemption for buildings that were smaller than 10 by 10, but I don't remember the 5, and I don't have the LDR before me.
What, the 5? Yes, it was in a previous LDR.
5 feet.
It was for workshops, and it was 5 feet, because I had to come up here and do my thing, and it was, my workshop is a 10 by 20. And if you had the smaller sheds, there was no setback. But if you had something bigger, it was 5 feet from the back line.
Yes,
And I had mine approved when I did mine before the storm came.
but that's no longer true. It's 10 now.
It changed, it
It
changed.
follows, all buildings, all structures follow the current setback.
And, like I said, the problem I had a brand new structure put up late August, 6 weeks later, it's gone. Now I can't put it back, and I, got a contract and over $4,000 of money in somebody else's pocket.
See, Administrator makes a good point about, if you have a hardship case, you are certainly entitled to come before the city council under a variance situation. And you are correct. It now conforms to the building setbacks for the lot.
Right.
The accessory structure thing is now part of the normal setback. The only comment, you have anything else?
No, that's it.
My only comment on this is the limited waiver. I'm trying to understand why we would create a limited waiver of 24 months. We're 6 months and counting in. You can see what little has been done. I guess this was the first reading of this was done at a meeting I wasn't at, but I don't remember. I know initially we talked about 12 months, and we realized that half of that was gone, but now we're at 24 months. what's the need for a limited waiver if the setbacks apply? I mean, there's gonna be people, it's gonna be, it goes with the land, it doesn't go with the person, so why the limited part?
The theory was to, if people didn't act fairly quickly, to eliminate some of the non-conforming situations in the city. It'd be 24 months from the day of the adoption of this ordinance, and at that point, they would have only had to have applied for the development order, so really it could be close to 4 years before they're truly done with building.
Cause it's 24 months from adoption to apply for a development order, and then you've got another year after, so
To start.
it's gonna be close to 4 years after the storm.
I understand, but there's gonna be cases, there's gonna be many that are gonna, they're gonna need this setback change. I just don't understand, to me, I don't see where the time frame. Are we gonna tell them, no, you missed that, so now you have to conform to the setback? Well, there's, I mean,
Well, I guess, personally, I think there should be some time frame. Continuing forever for 20 years down the line and not conforming to what's there, I think is ridiculous as, 12-month. 2 years may be too short, but certainly if it's 5 years from now and no one's done anything, the land could pass on to someone else. I think there needs to be conformity, my personal feeling. I understand
they
what you're
can't,
saying.
you have to understand, they can't. Many of those lots, they can't.
Well, the conformity would be to the LDR as it is.
But they
at
can't.
this point.
Those
Then they'd have to figure out
those
how
small
to-
lots.
Then they'd have to move it, adjust. I guess, I hear what you're saying, don't get me wrong. I just think we need, personally, I think there needs to be some time frame.
Okay.
2 years is that, I don't know. What's the other one now?
Well, I was trying to just understand why,
Yeah.
what the limited waiver was for. I guess at the time it was done, everybody thought 24 months was sufficient.
Just another technical comment, if we were to look at a permanent change, we really need to do that in the land development code. This would be the correct way to do it.
Well, it can always be changed again before 24 months.
And one thing, depending on how long you stretch it out, we no longer have, at some point, we're not gonna have records to know where the original footprint was, it can't. Our access to that information. And being able to show that footprint unless the owner is willing to provide a survey or some type of documentation to show the original footprint, the longer it drags out.
But aren't we, surely we would all agree that in 24 months, that won't cover everyone that's gonna need this variance. That's just not gonna happen. But again, if we can review it prior to that and it can be extended or changed or whatever, okay.
We can go ahead and change it to 36 months now. We kinda know where we've been and then look at it again down the road.
Yeah, I think it's just not realistic that 24 months is gonna give, I think we'll have a tremendous amount of people that'll still be
Move it
in
to
that.
36 months and we look at 36 months now. and see what we
Well,
can
I don't know if anybody wants to do that. I would recommend that we do 36 months, better than 24.
I don't have a problem with that.
All right, so we make that change to 36 months following the date of this ordinance. And are there any other comments?
I got a question. Okay, by making this non-conforming, you change the setback from 10 feet, from 5 feet to 10 feet. Now, everything's gonna be non-conforming, such as his lot. Is that right?
They were already non-conforming.
No,
No,
we
his
didn't
was
change,
not
we didn't change
already-
the setbacks now on the zoning category.
It's for
They've always been, residential has always been 7.5 on the side, 10 in the back, 20 in the front. That's been.
For a shed.
No, the shed thing that he's making reference to, there was a thing in the LDR and I'm almost certain it had to do if you had a certain, I believe it was relevant to the size shed,
Relative
to the size of the shed. I'm not sure, but I'd have to go get mine. What does it say? What does it say?
Cross that stuff is what we were used to.
yeah.
It's where highlighter.
If the site is adjacent to a major arterial road with a front setback from the site, what, I can't read that, I'm sorry. Read it.
Yeah,
Yeah, read it out loud.
the prior rule, was stored buildings may be placed within 5 feet of the rear property line, was under setbacks.
And doesn't do the size.
And it's now, I think just everything falls under the normal 10-foot.
No, it's 10 now.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
Whatever the setback.
So a
is for that
storage
zone.
building could be 5 feet from the back line.
Not now.
Before.
No, but I mean, now we know, it had nothing to do with the size of the structure.
Right,
It's just,
exactly.
a storage building could be 5 feet.
As long as you were 10 feet off the house and 5 feet within the back rear property line, you were fine.
I don't know anything about off the house.
But I guess to Mr. Pollock's point, this doesn't, these are structures that were already non-conforming on the primary structure, because this is about the primary structure. So it was structures that were already non-conforming, the council made the decision to let them rebuild to their previous footprint, even though they're gonna continue to be non-conforming. We're not making
Yeah.
properties now non-conforming.
But if they deviate from that at all, then it's,
Right, if they deviate from that original footprint, then they have to follow current code.
Okay, so, let me get my, we have a motion and a second to read. We're making, that, we can still have the second reading with that one change?
Yeah, it's a small.
That's a
change.
small enough change?
Make it clear in your motion that we're extending the 24-month time period to 36 months.
Did whoever made that motion clarify that?
Clarify it and to read that it
For
does
36
go from 24 to 36 months.
Okay, and we're seconding that motion. Okay, please read.
Ordinance 715, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, providing for a limited waiver of setbacks to rebuild a primary structure within its pre-Hurricane Michael footprint, providing for severability, repeal, and immediately effective.
Thank you. All right, next is ordinance 716.
Go back, we gotta vote it.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, we read it. Motion to adopt. Thank you.
So moved.
Have a motion to adopt, have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
No.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes. Okay, 716, right? For some reason I'm getting confused. Second reading of ordinance 716. Do I have a motion to read?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Are there any opposition to reading? Okay, please do so.
Ordinance 716, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, amending the Land Development Code to revise the process and requirements to obtain plan unit development approval, making a PUD an overlay zone instead of an independent zoning category, eliminating the status of PUD concept and the associated rules, requiring applicants to reimburse the city's professional fees to review and consider PUD applications, deleting the mini PUD category and all rules related to it, repealing ordinances or parts of an ordinance in conflict, providing for codification, providing for severability and an immediately effective date.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second. Have a second. Questions, comments concerning ordinance 716? Before we adopt, could we give, just for the record and for those here, just a very quick synopsis of what ordinance 716 is? Either Nick, Fanny?
Yeah, 716, just, if you remember, in our land development regulations, we had a very complicated, lengthy PUD process for any developer developing a PUD. So this is, what we did is we worked with our land planners and we streamlined that, removed a lot of the added time that we really added no value to the process. And we've adopted, a PUD process that is just more streamlined up front and eliminates a lot of additional work, not only on behalf of the city, but on behalf of the developer. We're not changing any of their requirements, not changing any of the rules, it just is, it streamlines the process.
And it's also, it's really set up so that you get a more complete package to review and improve, instead of previously we had this PUD concept phase and then full PUD phase, so you sort of got a rough draft first, and then later on, there'd be an opportunity for the developer to come back with the final development plan, but it streamlines that all in one step, so they've gotta have a full plan at the front end for you to consider. The other thing it does that's important is it eliminates the mini PUD category altogether. That was previously, that currently is for at least 2 acres, between 2 and 5 acres is where that would apply. The P&Z board suggested just eliminating it. It was too small an area to do this type of development.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
Thank you. Next is the second reading of ordinance 717. Have a motion to read? So moved.
Second.
Have a second. Any opposition to reading? Please do so.
Ordinance 717, an ordinance for the city of Mexico Beach, Florida, authorizing the sale of 244 La La Lane and 246 La La Lane, providing for process, evaluation of offers, and for publication of notices, and providing an immediately effective date.
Okay, motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions on ordinance 717? Call the roll.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
All right, moving on, number 6. Find myself again, there's no mayor pro tem. I will, who's presenting this?
I can present it.
Okay. I'll
This,
just abstain from the vote. Go ahead.
the land development regulations require any development on the canal to, be approved by the council. So this is a canal development order where they're just replacing damaged seawall. The new seawall will be within 12 inches of the previous seawall. It's exempt from DEP, Army Corps permitting. So we're just asking the council for approval on the replacement seawall to replace the wall that was there.
Is that a motion? Or question?
Yeah.
I was wondering, is it's within all of our ordinances and everything, we don't have any issues?
Yes, yes, and as far as permitting, what's required by Florida Building Code, as always, we leave that up to the building department, which is just the council step to approve that development order.
Move we approve the development order.
Second.
Motion second, call the roll. Questions? Comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Abstain.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
All right. Tanya, I think most of these are yours.
I'll run through them quickly. The fence, if you guys remember when we awarded the fence bid, we had one bidder. The original quote was just over $114,000. You guys approved us to move forward with the Public Works building and the tennis court, but you wanted us to try to bring in that price sum on all of the other fencing for our lift stations. Philip has been working on that, so this, we'll need a new task order, but since we've been kind of dead in the water for a few days, we don't have the documentation, but we can get your vote and then get that documentation to the mayor to sign. But the new cost for the full job is $84,202. So it's come in quite a bit, as you can see, about $40,000. So we will, with your approval, issue a new task order for the difference from the original tennis court, Public Works building, and the difference for the lift station.
Does that include the gate?
Yes.
Yes.
It does include the gate?
This is everything, the $84,000.
84,202 is everything.
Did it change Is it work required, or did they just work with you on the price and lower the price?
They, go ahead.
We changed the material, is what we changed,
Went from vinyl
to
to
lumber.
lumber.
Would we, so, I'm sorry.
From vinyl to lumber.
So
Just
lumber.
pressure treated,
Just
pressure
pressure
treated
treated
wood.
versus before
Versus
vinyl. This is just around the lift stations. You guys had already approved the Public Works building and the tennis court replacement. The
That's
remaining.
chain link.
Yes,
The lift stations, we went, instead of going with vinyl, we're now going with pressure
Going
treated.
back to wood, that's what we had.
yes.
I'm
So
with-
that saved
I'm
us
with
the price. So we just need your approval to,
I got you.
issue a task order for the lift stations.
All right, and you want it, the motion then should be for the amount that you just,
The new
gave.
amount?
The amount and the scope of work,
What's the
because
scope?
we're changing the scope of work now.
Do the scope again, Phil.
To include all lift stations. We originally, the original scope of work was just the public works and the tennis court. Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve, fence bid to include all lift stations for $84,202,000.
Second.
How much, how much?
84,202.
I heard 200,000, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Jared, you said?
Second.
Have a second, okay, questions? Any opposition to that bid, or that change? Okay, let the record reflect 4-0.
Okay?
Okay?
The next one is the task order for private property demolition. These are the structures that FEMA's allowing us to take down. We currently have 8 we can move forward with. We have another 36 to 38 that they've approved. Another, I don't know, 10 to 15 that we're waiting on them to come inspect. So basically, this is just a task order to allow Kaiser Kane, our debris removal company, to go ahead and start that demolition. And that was part of the original RFP. So that's, it's not changing the price, it's just a task order allowing them now to start that work.
Is that just by consensus that we move forward? You don't need any official action on that?
I don't think so, just
I think everybody agrees.
okay.
How many, do you have any idea how many homes have been lost? Either by the storm or demo to this date?
Not off the top of my head, but I can get you that number. We can look at the number of permits we pulled for demolition. I can tell you how many pulled permits on demolition.
That means some of them may not be down yet, but they're going to be.
Right.
Once they pull a permit, is there a limited amount of time that they have to take it down?
Typically, they're moving pretty quickly. They
Yeah,
don't come for their
noticed that.
permits until they're ready. They just have to wait for locator. They have to do their utility locates.
Okay.
And then once they have those, they're usually down. But I can get you the number. I've got some interesting facts to share with you guys at the end here.
So I understand there's not backup documentation because of the computer issues that have been going on, which is totally understandable. The city's done a great job to just pull together what we do have, considering what happened with the computers, but, our current task orders, have not to exceed dollar thresholds. They're focused on, more specific other tasks. So this is, maybe this does require a task order. How are we on funding within the current task orders? Do we need to approve some additional funding for this to stay?
Not at
on
this
schedule?
point, not at this point. That's why we don't have a dollar amount. It's included in that original not to exceed for that entire debris demolition. So if it changes, we'll certainly come back before the council. This is not changing that not to exceed number.
Okay. While we proceed, I'll just glance back at the task
Okay.
order we adopted before, make sure we're okay.
Okay, perfect. I have one on my computer, I just can't get to it.
I think I've got it on my computer.
You may have it, okay. The next one is the task order for hydro seeding. We don't have a task order for you, but we do have a task order for hydro seeding. Nick, did you put that together for us? Off of the state contract?
It is not prepared, completely yet. The general outline of the parameters, I'm setting up to look very much like our, fence contract. It would be a not to exceed of $100,000. Newbury's calculated that, it's 10 cents per square foot Hydro Seed, which is the price that Roberts and Roberts is providing the Florida Department of Transportation on a nearby job. And
So just to kind of explain what Nick is referring to, so Kaiser Kane was originally, tasked with this work. Their cost was 28 cents per square foot. Roberts and Roberts is working here on a DOT contract. FEMA rules allow us to purchase off an existing state contract. Roberts and Roberts could do it for 10 or 11 cents. I think is it 11? 10 cents per square foot, which is about a third of the cost. So we work with our Atkins consultants and with Nick, so we're gonna, just enter into a task order, or I guess it's more of a contract.
yeah, we don't have a relationship right now with Roberts and Roberts, so it would be a small standalone contract. Atkins has told us that they believe that they can get this under FEMA funding, but even if that didn't work because of the much lower cost, it wouldn't be a huge loss.
Right. And this is to hydroseed all of our storm ditches, the canal. We've got all that sediment running back in after the debris removal, so we need to stabilize those banks. So hydroseed is the way to go. We've tried, Kaiser Kane tried with just typical seed, and with all our rain, it just washes away. So we're going with the hydroseeding. You guys approve that.
Did you give the not to exceed amount?
$100,000.
It's roughly 660,000 based on the numbers that I saw, the linear feet, but you never know what you're gonna run into when you get in there, so we may have to.
Again, is this more of an information thing? I mean, is this
No, it's actually a contract.
This is a new task order?
Correct, this will need an approval and a vote of the council, correct?
Okay. A vote, not to exceed X,
$100,000.
100,000? Okay, I missed that.
Unless you prefer us to come back with the full written contract for next meeting, we would suggest that you describe the general terms and we'll handle the contract. It'll be a fairly standard contract.
So the scope of work is the hydroseeding for our canals and storm ditches, with a not to exceed price of $100,000. The contract is to Roberts and Roberts.
When would they start?
Immediately, that's what we're trying to get this through.
That's
because
why
we-
we'd like to do it today.
All right, can someone repeat and or paraphrase that?
I make a motion to approve the task order for hydroseeding with the contract with Roberts and Roberts, the canal and storm ditches not to exceed $100,000.
Second.
Awesome job.
All right, questions, comments on that task order? Any opposition? Let the record reflect, 4-0.
Okay, on number 10, I'm gonna let Philip handle this, just to let you know, so I sent you guys an email last week on our plan for dredging. Looking at cost, we had to look at an alternate plan, so I'm gonna let Philip catch you up on dredging.
All right, so Crowder Gulf approached us about the possibility of bringing in a larger dredge to dredge out the west sediment trap, which we all know was sanded over during the hurricane. The hopes was that there wouldn't be a mobilization cost. We originally thought, well, Crowder's initial estimates was there was enough cubic yards there to offset that cost, so they wouldn't actually charge us the mowed cost. Well, after we got down and dirty, trying to come up with a better estimate, the cubic yards is not there. So we went ahead and requested a price anyhow to get the dredge over here, which was $750,000 to mow it over here and mow it back. So we immediately asked for another alternative, and we got a land-based dredging operation, which is, is digging it out with a long reach, is basically what it is. No mobilization cost. The cubic yard price stays the same as the contract at $93.75. That doesn't change. The screening stays the same. Everything stays the same. It's just that there's no mobilization cost. It will take a little bit longer, obviously, if you're gonna dig it out with the track hoe compared to a 16-inch dredge. But
Not $1 million worth.
no, not $1 million worth. Right now, it's estimated that we've got 20,000 cubic yards in the west sediment trap that needs to be removed. At that cost, we're looking at $1,800,000 $175,000 to remove that sand. Now, in my opinion, the sand that we could pull out of the west sediment trap, we could use in our emergency dune. We can use that sand into that dune system and save us cost there. How much that cost would save us, I'm not real sure of. I haven't gotten that far with everything yet. But it's definitely a lot cheaper than trying to get a 16-inch dredge over here.
Who's got a long reach?
That will be Crowder Gulf supplying all that.
We do, Philip.
And their cost is what? Their charge, I mean?
No mobilization cost, just the cost of the sand itself, which is $93.75.
Which is the
Or the
standard, it's the same
the
price
same
same rate we're paying for dredging,
It's their unit cost.
for dredging, the contract, the
$93 a
existing
yard,
contract.
dredge it.
Yeah, dredge it, store it.
We know, we got a 12-inch dredge.
Well, 12-inch dredge wouldn't, I don't know, I'd have to look at it. I mean, me and you would have to get together. Our dredge, they have currently a 12-inch dredge sitting out there. The issue isn't that the sand can't push it, or the dredge can't push it, it's being so weather dependent. By doing it from the land side, we're not weather dependent anymore. You know, we're able to remove sand. As long as it ain't popping lightning every 15 seconds, you know, we can be out there and constantly working. On the dredge side of things, we're doing it from the waterway, we're completely dependent on what the weather's doing. And as everybody here, I'm sure knows, last week had everything shut down.
But 20,000 yards, what's that age? 4 days.
So do the math for me here. 20, we're estimating 20,000 cubic yards?
20,000 cubic yards.
93.25 a yard?
At 93.75 a yard.
93.75, so that's a lot of money.
Right at 1.9.
Why would we not, if we're going to not dredge it, why would we not solicit another price?
We can certainly do that,
Well,
but
we should.
if we're doing that, we're gonna keep cleaning out that mouth, and we have to be careful, because then it becomes maintenance.
I
And it's
understand,
not
believe me,
covered.
there's no one in this room that understands the purpose of that west trap and what we went through to get it and the importance of it. And what it'll do in the maintenance of the mouth of that canal for, unless we have some kind of weird weather pattern that would just fill it up so quick.
Well, the reason we asked Crowder Gulf, because they're on site and they can get to it quicker than we could, or go through the big process.
That's too much money because they're here, for me. I think we should explore quickly another, or at least, if we're gonna long reach it, there's a lot of people do that and can do it just as quick, but if they can't if they don't give them.
Well, let me just tell you what we'd have to do, just so you'll understand time frame. We'll have to prepare an RFP, we have to advertise it for 14 days, then we have to award it, and we have to mobilize. It could take 25 days or longer from start to finish. And if we don't do this quickly, nobody's fishing on June 1. No, nothing's happening, so I'm just,
Well, that,
we're
that west
fighting.
trap ain't gonna, we hadn't had that west trap dug in a year, in 2 years.
Can I make a suggestion, Philip?
Yeah, go ahead.
After this meeting, we sit down and take a look at it, but with fixing to, you're wanting to use part of it for the emergency burn, correct? So therefore, we change ordering an amount back off our sand that, from North Florida. So, I mean, if we dredge it in a week, and we actually have access to a dredge that's sitting on semis actually, fixing to be here, the 12-inch dredge, put together a number for it.
We have to follow FEMA rules for, we have to bid it. We can talk all day, but we have to put it out there for a proper competitive bid. And that's gonna take us a while, so.
But, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you were getting numbers and just getting a budget, I assume, because you didn't have it out for bid.
No, it's
No,
a change order with the current contract.
with that
And that's what
contract.
I'm saying, if you're gonna change order from the current contract that you're fixing to award, in my assumption, for 20,000 yards out of 100,000 yards, that you have viable, why wouldn't you do it with the same contract that's doing the emergency burns?
Because
Because the
this-
emergency burns, dredging wasn't a part of the emergency burn bid.
What was dredging a part of the original
Yes.
Crowder?
Yes, that's what their contract is about. I mean, we can go back and explore.
Well, back to your comment about fishing now, if that gets, I need to clarify that. I disagree that digging that berm out
We,
will not affect opening that canal.
It's
The mouth of that
affecting us.
canal is open.
for now, today
Right,
it is.
right,
but
today it is.
it's been an issue, keeping it open,
But
because that,
it stayed an issue now. Come on, let's don't, I don't wanna scare
I
people,
was-
think we're gonna float and they can't go fishing, cause the west berm has not been pumped out in easily
I
18
think
months.
we're, conversations over, then we need to go back, 'cause it's maintenance now.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wait a
I think
minute,
we'll
wait
go
a
back and
minute,
look at it.
that's too much money for me to vote to give Crowder Guff simply because they're here, because I think we can do it for a lot less money.
The only way we'll know that's put it out for bid.
Well, that's what we should do, because we can if our dredge is working, we can maintain the mouth of that canal, just like we have been for a long time. Why
That's our
are we
plan.
saying no? I need to understand that. Why are we saying no?
I'm not saying no, I'm saying we're gonna do that.
No, you're saying, no, you're shaking your head no, so
We'll talk offline after the meeting. And I'll kind of explain.
well, I don't know about that. I mean, so what are we asking for today?
I think we're not asking for anything, we're gonna go back. and-
Okay.
We are, we
Are we
are.
putting it out to bid? Is that
No.
what we're gonna do? Or are we gonna talk about it more?
I think we need to, yeah.
I've completely lost track now.
Mine too.
So even if we're not adding that scope for the West Sand Track, based on the amount of material Crowder Gulf has already dredged, we need to increase their not to exceed to be able to continue the dredge project. So they gave us a new revised, estimate, just because they're encountering more material than we thought. And so regardless, if we're going to keep dredging, we have to increase their not to exceed.
Right, so that, the difference, we're giving the difference, it's the difference of the entire project, not the cost of
No,
the
that-
trap,
Two different ones. What's the number on?
So
on just
figuring-
the trap.
On just the trap, it was, 1.8.
Yeah, 1.875.
So he's calculating the number without the trap.
So are you saying because if we choose not to go with the long arm approach, you're gonna recommend that we do additional dredging under our existing contract?
No, I'm saying, based on the amount of material Crowder Gulf has dredged so far to date, we have reached their previous not to exceed task order amount of 5 million. So based on what they've done so far, which was already in their, this was part of the dredge project, their scope, we need to today increase their not to exceed to allow the dredging project to move forward, because we've already exceeded that volume, and
So
we
that-
still have dredging to do.
That would be true regardless of this prior conversation.
Regardless of the sand trap, that needs to be done. And that's what we're figuring out right now.
9,550,820
That would be the total.
That's the total,
Total.
for
not,
the
not
entire
to exceed.
project.
Yes, and I think we're at 5 million right now.
I don't know, that's blowing my mind.
Both
Quite
are
frankly, you mean from the boat ramp to the mouth of the canal? Tell me,
It's everything, so
Water
it's,
side, out to, through the second sandbar,
Through
and
the second-
everything in between.
and 8th Street Canal.
well, they hadn't,
So this is, this is the
they haven't dredged it.
No, this is the total project. So what we're saying is the not to, we gave them a task order for the whole project with a not to exceed amount. We're already to that not to exceed amount. So for them to finish the project, we need to increase the not to exceed and allow them to move forward and keep dredging.
Mayor, if I could make a suggestion, let us go back on this and then we'll call a special meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
When we did the original task order, we did anticipate that it could go up, but that's a big jump.
We just
We
need
should
to
get
get-
more documentation.
I actually
We
tried
have
to
it.
find the tab, or the bid tab earlier today before we came to this meeting, cause I knew that question was gonna be raised, cause I don't remember what
You didn't call.
the original cost was. I wasn't able to find it, but I.
We
I knew
need,
that
we
was
need
gonna be-
more information.
We'll do that, we'll come
Okay.
back. The next one is sea oats and dune fencing. We have the Duke project, the volunteer project on June 1. We have, 25,000 in our insurance money to replace, landscaping, whether it's trees, the sea oats, and we just need approval. I know that Duke is still considering giving us additional funds to help with some of the sea oats and the dune fencing. So we may not need all of the 25,000 depending on what Duke comes back with, but we wanted to go ahead and just get your approval. 25,000 is the insurance amount that we have, so that we can start purchasing those,
When will Duke, make up their mind?
but if we don't use it, it's still there to use in our parks and other places. This is our insurance money, the 25,000. So we're just asking for approval, to spend up to 25,000 on the beach landscaping,
That
which
needs
are the
to be
trees
done.
Who's gonna do it?
volunteers.
Okay, that's the volunteer project, okay, that,
Have too many more days like we had this last week,
Right.
most of the sand will be on the other
Exactly,
side of the street.
exactly.
Can you, I'm sorry, repeat 20, not to.
25,000.
25,000.
Not to exceed 25,000.
Okay, for our beach landscaping not to exceed 25,000, do we have a motion? So moved. So, a motion and a second, is there any discussion? How will that be ordered? What, the city will handle the purchasing of that?
Yes, we have a volunteer group.
Okay,
They're handling all of that and they're working with Duke, and I think they have already talked to Adrian about ordering the COs and fencing.
awesome.
Good, good, good.
Okay, any opposition? All right, let that motion show, carries 4-0.
And the next is the award of the emergency burn. You have the bid tab in your packet. This is to install the emergency burn, the entire length of the beach. The lowest bidder is North Florida Construction at $3,694,200.
What do we have in there when we talked to FEMA about it?
FEMA will cover it. We had estimated 3.5 million for that, but it is FEMA reimbursable, the full amount.
Good, good.
Now, I just get so, this is where we're gonna truck the sand from the berm that's been, the sand's being pumped into, we're gonna start and we're gonna head east and get up to like 28th Street or whatever
Yes.
to get this, okay.
And as, yeah, I was gonna say, as you noticed, we started stockpiling it, moving it from the spoil
Yeah.
site, beach quality sand. I know, I think there was concern that it looked different. With it's wet, it looks much darker than when
I
it
know it
dries
does. I
out.
got it, touched
So I
it.
don't want people to be concerned. That's beach quality sand. It's been sifted, the debris removed, and that's what will go into our berms.
And so, but this contract also includes purchase of sand as required. So it's expected, whatever the city supplies, we would do a reductive change order to take that material out. The contractor would still, do the labor and place it. And then this one, we're also planning to do direct purchase, so, hoping to get sales tax savings on it, so this is,
On the berm.
yeah, so this
What
is the
would we
worst case.
purchase if we're gonna use our sand?
We need
We-
additional sand.
Oh,
Yes,
we're gonna be
yes,
short sand.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's a lot of sand.
How many cubic yards are we estimating?
93,000.
Sure. I have no idea. We have a ton of our own sand.
And who goes down on the beach and says this is where it goes? Is that Dewberry?
Yes and no. As part of the contract with North Florida Construction, they will have construction staking, so it'll be staked out, toe berm, top
Yeah.
of berm, they'll know how high to put it. But yes,
But that's a Dewberry that stakes out the berm.
Dewberry probably will stake it out. That's part of the contractor's contract. That's covered in this price to have someone stake it out. It doesn't have to be Dewberry. It's whoever that
Well,
contractor.
who knows where to go? Who knows where to put it?
So, yeah, the contractor will request, either they will request Dewberry to stake it, or they'll request that we give them their file and they'll have somebody else stake it. But regardless, it will be staked out and placed in the right spot, and we'll be doing construction inspection.
I guess that's my question. What's the right spot?
Who determines the right spot?
Yeah, there's a plan.
It's per our plan, yeah, it's per
There's
our
a plan
plans.
already.
It's,
Okay, just,
yeah.
Their
I saw
plan-
some stakes on the beach. I was curious.
So there's multiple things
Yeah,
going on there.
multiple things,
There-
multiple stakes.
That is separate from this.
Oh, of course.
We were placing some of
It's a
our,
test.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm not even asking,
It-
there's multiple stakes, there's multiple colors on the stakes, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah.
I said, well,
Yeah, it's
I'm
better
not,
if you
not
just don't
figure all that
ask.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better if you just don't ask.
I understand, I got it. Okay,
I did have one question.
Yeah.
Dana, was there something that actually specified how much the city was going to supply?
We don't know, because we didn't know how much will.
So there's nothing in there that actually says that?
The quantity, I don't think so.
Is there anything that actually says the city's gonna supply some?
I mean, the city's direct purchasing it, so
Direct
technically
purchase.
they're providing all of it, but,
Correct. And that's a sand supplier, we went to bat on this order, is the only reason I'm saying, on 100,000 yards, and I'm just questioning, is there gonna be 50,000 yards now because we've got dredge and
how
sand?
much was in the disposal site?
I mean, we're talking.
In the sports side, we had roughly
50,000
43,000
yards,
cubic
100,000
yards,
yards.
but that's not all beach compatible sand either.
So the, so I don't know what you heard,
Like, how
We
much,
don't know.
yeah, how much material?
43,000 total, but not all of it's beach compatible, so not all of it can be used.
That's what the specifications actually claim for the contractor to supply upland sand. Not from, and I'm just trying to ask questions here because, like I said, there's a big difference when you ramp up production for 100,000 yards versus 50,000 yards.
Well, I don't know that that contract's been awarded yet, but when it
That's
is
what
awarded,
we're-
right, we're getting ready to award it, but we're, you know, our job is to look out for the taxpayers. So
And
we're
I
gonna
understand
use,
that.
we've got our own
And we
sand,
would-
we're gonna use our own sand.
And I wholeheartedly agree, but I'm just asking for specification reasons. The bid specs, didn't state anything for it. So as a supplier, we went to bat for 100,000 yards.
In other words, it's easier to bid on 100,000 than 50.
Well, I mean, am I gonna, you know,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a different price, there ain't no doubt.
Yeah, well, the bidder is, the lowest bidder is North Florida Construction, so.
Correct, and they plan on using our sand. We have an agreement as well, and that's what I'm saying, you know, it's just come to light in this meeting about the city having their own sand and wanting to supply it. I don't have no problems with that. That wasn't mentioned in the specifications.
Okay, well, we need to do a change order, we do a change order.
No, he's saying, so do we need to, should we award it to you or not?
I mean, well, I think that's a question for North Florida Construction and let them worry about their
I mean,
supplier.
we don't have any agreement with Tom.
Right.
I mean, that's.
No, you don't, but you direct purchase.
But-
Correct.
I know, but we're gonna direct purchase through the contract that we now have in North Florida, so I mean,
Yeah,
it's a third party. Your agreement is with North Florida.
Correct.
In our agreements with North Florida.
yeah.
So I don't think I mean, if the low bid, and that's why we bid it out, and there's no specification for how much sand we're gonna supply versus what we're gonna have to buy, and like you just said, we're buying it all, or we're supplying it all. So, I don't see how we can really, I don't think we need to go down the path of what the supplier of the sand in North Florida have. I don't think that's of any discussion at this table.
I agree.
So, we are, as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to move on with the bid, and that's what we bid, and unless you see a question that's been raised that says we don't need to do that. From the spec,
As,
from the specs that we put out there.
right, no, I think as long as North Florida is ready to go on the project, we'll award it and we'll be good to go. But if North Florida now wants to back out of it, then we'll have to.
You mean because they didn't know that that they weren't gonna buy all the sand, or that we were gonna furnish some of the sand?
Plus you're $150,000 cheaper. Guess that's basic. You know, I didn't read what they received from it.
What did we include in our spec? Because
That's what I mean.
the bidders are required to honor the bid unless there was something that was just misleading about our specs.
I don't think it was misleading. I mean, this number, the 3.6, is for the entire project supplying all the sand. Because we didn't know how much sand we would actually get out of the spoil site. We didn't know how much of it would be beach compatible and how clean it would be. That being said, we're not gonna throw away good sand, so it's perfectly within our right to award the contract and then change order out anything that we're not having to purchase.
Right, so we'll
Because we would be
reduce
providing.
this cost by.
It would reduce,
some.
yeah, and I mean, North Florida will still have to place the sand, construct the dunes, we just won't be directly purchasing the sand, that quantity of sand. So I think what you're saying is your unit price is gonna change.
If I remember right, the bid read as an estimated 93,000
Yeah,
cubic yards.
so
I say we move on.
I agree.
I say we move on. All right, but Chair will entertain a motion to accept the low bid from North Florida Christian, 3.694,200.
Make that motion.
Thanks. Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Questions or comments from anyone?
Okay.
Okay, the only thing, just a comment based on what you said. Once we award this to them, at that time, surely there will be that North Florida, if they choose to do something, then they will come back to the table.
Right, and we have the next lowest bidder.
Right, there you
Yes.
go, okay. And before we, again, Philip or Tanya, how does, when do we call them today, or we give them notice that they have been awarded, and what's their time frame to respond?
That's what I have
When
for you to
sign
sign,
that?
yeah,
Yeah, I think they were at the bid opening.
Yeah, he said behind you.
yeah,
Oh.
they're here.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
North Florida. Yes, sir. All right. You've been awful quiet through all this. Okay,
Next one is the walkover bid.
let the record show it's 4 of them. Okay, gotcha. Keep going.
The next is the walkover bid. He's got that bid tab. The dune walkovers. This is for, the first 5,
Who's designed these?
Dewberry.
Are they gonna be better than what we used to have?
We're actually, we'll be scheduling a public hearing just to put the design out there for people to see and respond to from the public on the dune walkovers, as well as we have, we're waiting on something on the canal. We're trying to do the canal, the dune dedicated beach, and 7th Street Park, all in the same public meeting. So we're trying to get that for May, but you'll see those. The first 5 are essentially the same layout as we had before at the end of, I don't have that with me. All of these are on the
3rd,
dedicated,
7th.
they're all at the dedicated beach.
5th, Parker, 386 and C Street.
So the lowest bid is $277,603.
Floridian Construction and Development.
Yeah.
Meridian.
Floridian.
Who knows them?
I think we've worked with Floridian.
Where are they from?
I don't know off the top of my head, they are local. I can't remember which direction though, I'm sorry. I haven't worked directly with them, but I do know they're local.
They turn in a qualification sheet?
Yes, yes. they turned in with
They
their,
were
So you'd be inspecting.
Well,
their
if
work.
they met the qualifications, I mean, it's
Mhm.
not know sometimes who we deal with.
yeah, I haven't worked with them directly before.
Okay.
But I have heard.
Just ask, I mean, I don't know.
How low are they, how many bids do we have?
We got four. The next closest was about
25,000.
25,000 more.
Okay, this is the walkover bid, and it's for 277,603.
They're out of testing.
Dan, you mentioned about public hearing or public notice of people see, will that also include Highway 98 as far as
The parking, yes.
design?
Yes, that whole, we're gonna put.
Put all of that out
yeah,
there?
We're not awarding that, this is just for the walkover.
I know we're not,
Yeah.
but that is part
Yes.
of what,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, we
I'm
have
gonna ask
plans
that.
for
Okay.
that.
And we've coordinated with DOT on this. I think they've offered to do some of the landscaping around each dune as well, to try to.
To our specs?
Well, for
I mean, to
DOT,
your specs?
Well,
The DOT spec.
yeah,
but
yeah.
they
I've seen
would,
some of DOT.
Yeah,
Never mind.
they'll-
Never mind.
they'll work with us. They'll
Okay,
work with us.
that's what I want to hear.
All right, so we need a motion on the dune walkover, to, Meridian Construction.
Make a motion to award the 5 dune walkovers to Meridian Construction and Development for $273,603.
Second.
Motion second, questions? Any opposition? Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, Tanya. The walkover dunes, okay, the walkovers where they are, is DOD or anything to decide how wide that road's gonna be? From out to the beach?
I can tell you that the DOT right of way is 15 feet. from
So they're gonna
the
make
line.
it 15 feet and the city's gonna add some to it?
Add some
another-
to it, that's our proposal, but that's not, this is just the walk, this is
No,
just
no, but the
constructing
walkover's
those
gonna
five
cover
walkovers.
all that distance over the whole thing and down.
Actually, yeah, it'll start there, so after you complete that vote, I'll go to the next piece for
Yeah,
this, for
FEMA.
the walkovers.
Okay.
Okay. Again, any opposition? Motion carries forward, moving on.
Also in your packet is a resolution for, it's a draft resolution for DOT, since those walkovers,
It's not in your package.
cross.
It's additional
I
sheet.
gave everybody
Okay, this is
some
it.
extra
Yeah.
copies there.
Put it on
It's
there.
a resolution, basically, just because those walkovers will, be on the DOT right of way, so they need a resolution, DOT needs a resolution from us, and this is one I think, Nick, you drafted.
I drafted this, yes. Dina, help me if I need to correct anything, because I haven't had the conversations with DOT. But what this really does is just requests to DOT that the city's allowed to do construction within their land and their right of way, and that we can leave these walkover facilities in areas that are technically under DOT ownership.
Yeah, and they requested this as part of permitting. We're in the right of way, so as part of the permitting, they asked for the rest.
Okay.
In other words, the mayor needs to sign it.
Yeah,
Yes.
we don't really.
Do we have a motion to approve resolution 2019-04?
So moved. Second.
Second.
Reading or approving?
Well, both.
Okay.
Go ahead, read it, I'm sorry, I got,
I gotta write down these two first here. Oh, okay. Resolution 2019-04. A resolution of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, requesting that the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, allow the city to construct permanent walkways within land and right-of-way owned by FDOT.
motion to approve was made, second, any opposition?
No.
Okay, thank you, moving on.
The next bid is for the water tie-ins on West 98, Highway 98. We had two bidders, the lowest is GAC Contractors at $173,480.95. The next, the other bid is $380,152. So staff recommends awarding it to GAC.
Yeah, this one is, Phillips asked me if that's right. Yes, it's right. So it's not what they bid. Their math was a little bit off, so they're tied to unit costs. So when we actually input the bid amounts, this is what it comes to. It's actually a little bit lower than what they had put on their bid. I will say GIC came forward and they had messed up one of their unit prices, so when I calculated it up, it was about $50,000 higher than what you're seeing. So I talked to them about it and they were off one digit, so in fact, they asked me to change it to correct it. They're still obviously the lowest bidder, but there's a discrepancy in their math, but the 173,480 is what it actually comes to based on the unit prices they use, so.
So that's the amount it should be.
Yes.
What did they bid? 173,510?
Yes.
One 73,480.
Yes,
Yeah,
actually went down just a little bit.
yeah. Not much, but.
No, I'm just.
Still, okay.
$30.
Again, water tie-ins on the south side of the road, is that what we're dealing with here?
The condos,
Condos
and, what else?
in the south side of the road.
Condos, South 37, South 38.
So that, is that what gets rid of the cast pipe?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the 6-inch will be completely offline at that point.
Yes.
Anybody keep it up, how about what it gets bid?
This is FEMA reimbursable. FEMA reimbursable.
Yeah, I got a fan of stuff.
Trust me, I talk Adrian off the ledge multiple times a week. So.
All right, do we have a motion to accept the contract for the water tie-ins from GSC?
So moved.
Second. Motion second, please include the price.
Oh, I move we accept,
173.
173,480.
90.95.
Second. Have a motion and a second, is there discussion? Everybody fully know what we're doing, understand the, all right, any opposition to the motion? Let the record reflect again, 4-0 for the time. All right, where are we, 15?
Next one is the harbor master. You have, 2 candidates. Should have that information. Mayor, yours is in the separate,
Here, in this stack?
You had John Lee and Kyle Rigsby, and you have the 2 applicants in your packet.
You probably don't have them. Okay. They're not in the packet.
No, I gave you, remember the clip that I gave you.
I got it, yeah, I found.
Tanny, would they both follow the same business terms, or is it just a choosing a more qualified person?
Those are the 2 candidates that we have.
Okay, give everybody a chance to look at that, then open the floor up and again, that, there's nothing in here about the contract, but it's the same agreement that we had under the.
Is there anyone that makes recommendations of these 2?
I
No?
This is John Lynn Fisherman, Antarctica.
I don't know if any of you know these folks. I've known John Lee for, ever since John's been here, he's a boat captain. He has lost his business in terms of his is the boat that's sitting on our dock with the back end of it up. awesome guy. Wants to be involved in Mexico Beach, and I think he is very deserving, and needs some income. He would do a great job down there.
He's local. That is local. So I said.
So, Chair will entertain a motion for acceptance of.
I want to ask one quick question.
Please do.
I'm not officially, say, TWIC, TWIC. Those guys says he's a licensed captain in TWIC. I don't
I
understand.
don't know.
Okay.
I didn't
Just
see.
curious.
TWIC, all the captains have to have it, it allows them to go into ports, and every captain has to have it. It's given through the
Thank
port
you,
authority.
I just didn't know.
You ready for a motion?
I am.
I make a motion to appoint John Lee, harbor master.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion, comments? Any opposition? Let the record reflect. John Lee, new harbor master for, okay? Where else are we?
Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous?
Okay, I'm gonna run through these quickly.
Okay.
As you know, our IT systems at City Hall were held ransom. We were able to, with the help of our cybersecurity team, we were able to recover all of our data on the primary server. The backup server is dead. It's gone. We've got to replace that. We have one computer that the FBI picked up. We should have that back. We're hoping by the end of the week. It was a foreign attack on an American government, so the FBI is involved. We did not have any breach of data. No data went out, so there's no concern with your utility bill payments, your checking account, your credit card information. No data left this building, so there was no breach of data, which is very positive. We're in the process of continuing to scan the computers. A couple of the computers were encrypted. One of those is mine. You can't, so they're working on cleaning that up currently. But I am using a laptop, so I can function in email. So what you have before you, and that was in your clip, the clipped additional documents that you have, is the upgrades we need to ensure this doesn't happen again. And I think that, I don't know where the captain is, they're already pinging us, trying to get back in, so we need to correct this as soon as possible. The cost of the changes we need to correct the problem is $11,388.79. Fortunately, we were able to get a grant to do the recovery, so it didn't cost us anything, but it could have been very, very expensive. So.
Does that include changing our backup methods and what it'll cost to do that?
The only thing it doesn't include is Springbrook, which is our utility billing software, and we have a proposal from them, but we're still looking at that. We'll present that probably at budget time. If we can just make these changes, this will protect us.
Are we doing anything now to back up the systems in case we get hurt?
Yes. Do you wanna speak?
I'm Captain Willis. We've got a secondary backup device that we put on and we're backing it up nightly.
Is it separated then when it's not in use then? Unlike the other one was?
100% separated. I've got it unplugged and it's sitting in the drawer right now.
Okay. Is there any need for us to have someone that watches this situation?
I would highly recommend, and we'll probably make that proposal at budget time, that we have an IT.
I mean, we have a rather good one that lives here.
Our captain and Sergeant Foster, I said they save our butts literally and figuratively on this one, so They help us every single
Good
day,
deal.
so but we do need to look, I think the city is at a point now where we need an IT professional that we can work with and call in.
This person I'm talking about does things all over the United States for major concerns, minor concerns.
And I think we have the support we need
Yes,
currently until budget time, and we can make that proposal, but these are the items we need to do right now to.
Are these the items you said that you expect the grant to cover? Or was
No,
just the
that was
corrective
just
action?
the corrective action to cover our data.
But this would probably just be normal expenses in the city.
Yes. Yes, this is operational expense. We just wanna put this before you and make sure you don't have any concerns with.
And some of this is just licenses that we probably just needed to update. Okay.
A lot of that's hardware that's going out of support.
Yeah.
In the next year, within the next year, it's gonna go out of support regardless, it was gonna have to be replaced anyway.
And just so everybody knows too, when we say we're back up and running, we are almost back up and running. Online utilities, when you log in to pay online, or you have recurring payments, I still don't have access to that. And our computers are up, but they are very, very, very slow.
And all that will change as we get the system and all the security protocols ironed out and get it going. Things are coming around. I think I have a solution for the online bill pads at the city here. I have a good idea.
Don't look at me, I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Nobody's looking at me, you know, let's make sure we understand, nobody's looking down here on this.
I know budget's a long way
And you,
off, so-
somebody did a lot of work to write all, I don't have no idea what some of this stuff is. But it
would
looks
highly
good.
recommend
Yeah, it
you
looks
do
good.
it.
Official.
So is this just a general fund expense, I mean, or out of our one bucket that we have?
Our little.
Well, I totally agree, this is, I mean, we've reached that point that we have to protect ourselves, that's what we have to do.
It was scary. I thought we weren't gonna have anything. We talked last week that we didn't think we'd recover anything. All financials, all payroll, everything we thought was gone, but.
FEMA probably does buy it over there.
What's that?
FEMA.
I don't think that's.
Does this require, I mean, is this a required or just a acknowledgement of, I think you have to identify the, usually we would identify the source of the money. Just a general fund expenditure.
Yes.
Would somebody make a motion? I'm sorry, Jerry did? Jerry's always ready to go.
No, I just thought about it. Rick was the
Okay.
one gonna make the motion.
So we have a motion for 11,388.79, general fund expense, and we have a second. Any opposition or comments? All right. Is this something that happens fairly quickly?
Immediately.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing is, last meeting, you asked us to go back and look at the RV permits that we had. We've issued a total of 96 RV permits, for people putting their permits on their lots. We only have 21 who have not, started a development order or a permit in the, building department. 2 of those 21 haven't even brought in their RVs yet. I don't know if they decided not to or changed their mind. 2 are now trying to sell their lots. We have 7 we're still trying to reach, and then 6 are waiting on insurance, elevation certificate, DEP, various and sundry things. So what we're doing now is we are, basically, now that the moratorium has been lifted, we're rolling back to the policy on the books prior to the storm, which is if you come in and you are building new construction or you're doing significant repairs, when you come to the building department, pull your permits, you can put your RV on your lot until you get your CO. We're just asking you to go to code enforcement and get a sticker to put on your RV. There's no cost for that, so that we can document and know where we have RVs in our town that are legitimate and not, because we have had situations where folks are bringing in RVs and putting them on somebody else's lot and trying to rent them online, so we're trying to keep a handle on that. So, but I don't think we need to do anything different with RVs. It seems like it's working, and folks who brought them in are actively trying to rebuild and do what they're supposed to be doing, so I think based on that,
Tanya, question on that? I got a permit, you're not gonna get a developer order on it, because it wasn't that
No,
much
you have a
damage to my
repair.
house. Yeah, I'm just repairing stuff,
Yes,
so back and
yeah.
forth, but when I came to code to get my sticker, I said, okay, you want me to put this in the front? And they said, no, put it on the back of your RV in the window. I said, well, my RV's backed in. I mean,
We just-
shouldn't that be like you put it by the street where somebody could see it?
they put it in a consistent place, because not all of them back them in like you do, so we just
Well,
had them in a
like street
consistent
view or
place.
something, so.
Once they've checked them, they don't have to keep checking them,
Okay.
once they know you're there, that's
Looks
not.
like they would put them where they can be seen from the road,
Yeah,
Exactly.
no matter how you park.
Yeah, we just had them in the same spot on all vehicles, all
Yeah, I see
RVs.
the road. Yeah, they're this big, I think they ought to be this big.
I agree, it's
Yeah.
big, right in the front, you can see it.
They're about an inch and a half by inch and a half.
Yeah, I know, I can see them, but I have to, you know.
And you have others?
I do, I have a
Okay.
couple more things. Just wanna give you some, interesting information. I talked with the property appraiser's office. We've had 71 properties sell, change hands in Mexico Beach since October 10th through March 29th. And so every month I'll give you this update. I think we're gonna see quite a bit more for the month of April, but this is just through March 29th. 71 properties have changed hands.
Someone told me one person bought 52.
We just got the number from,
Well, these are the people that are contracting with him to clean up lots. So I don't know who that is.
let's see, and just on debris, we've hauled off, 1,069,682 cubic yards of debris, storm debris. We've lost 13,900 trees, and this is just the debris that the city is hauling off. This doesn't include all that the private owners or demo guys are doing. 2,582 pieces of white goods, that's refrigerator, stoves, 33 vehicles, 8 boats, and 1 RV. We had, so far, we have about, as of April 19th, the last time we were able to get into Springbrook, we had 1,086 dwelling units now on full utilities, so that's good. We've come from about 300 just right after the storm up to 1,086, so people are back in, turning their water and sewer back on and back in their homes, so that's good news. And then I just had one other thing, the Governor's Hurricane Conference, that is, in May. I've been asked to present with Duke, at that conference, and I just wanna make sure that's okay with you guys. It's airfare down there and then 2 nights.
Where is it?
hotel. It's in West Palm Beach.
Oh.
And it's the Governor's Hurricane Conference. They're very interested in what we've done.
By all means.
Yep.
Do we have any way of somehow or another checking how many of our homes have gone back, say, to mortgage companies or banks?
We could probably get that at some point, but typically the property appraiser, it takes a while before they see those records. That's why we only have the data through March 29th.
Dan, before you leave that, 1,000 water customers?
1,086 now have active water and sewer.
I didn't think there were that many houses there.
Well, that's 1,086 properties
We have 2,700 active accounts.
prior to the storm.
So 1,086 is about.
Well, I mean, I guess, the condos are back online? Those can't be.
There is one condo building back online.
But that would, I don't think they have individual meters.
No,
It's a
that's
master
one big meter.
meter.
I just,
Yeah, well, some people have their water and sewer for their RV, don't forget.
Yeah.
90, well, it could be up to 96 people may have for their RVs.
I'll be one of those. All right, keep going.
And then, I think that's all I had. I wanted Philip to give you an update on sewer, and then Dina had one other thing, and we thought we would save, since we don't have access to a lot of information, we'll save our department head reports for the next meeting.
That's fine. All right, go ahead, Phil.
I've actually got few updates for everybody. I'll start with the canal dredging update. We've got through the first 20-foot wide cut, all the way through the second sandbar. We got through, early this morning. We've turned around and started the second cut for the final width pass. So we'll have a full 50-foot wide, 10-foot deep channel all the way through. After speaking with Crowder Gulf this morning, they estimate that they'll have that finished. The weather's slated to be just as pretty as it is today the rest of the week, with a slight chance of some weather moving in on Friday. But they expect it to be finished or through with that cut Saturday. They've got the barge in place, using that as a wave breaker. It's working out real well. All right, so that's the dredge update. Any
Before you leave
questions?
that.
Any questions?
Yeah, our dredge, when they leave that, how are we gonna maintain that?
The same way we've done it for.
With our dredge?
With our dredge.
And we got it in the process of coming back online?
Troy just finished replacing all the fuel lines in it. We're gonna just throw a temporary something on top of it to cover up the engine room. He's got the exhaust and everything already here, ready to go. But yes, we will be ready.
And we'll pump directly on the beach?
Yes, sir.
On the beach, but we are looking at that dredge situation with our bypass repairs, so we're
You trying to use our bypass?
repairing our bypass.
Yeah, we're
trying to get a new one there.
Repairing it and maybe looking at a different dredge that will actually do what we need it to do. That's a story for another day.
But what we will maintain when Crowder Gulf leaves?
Same as we always have, yes, sir.
Okay.
As soon as they're done, we pull up.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank
So,
you.
Next one.
Keep going.
Sewer update. As of today, we've replaced 58 feet of pipe on 42nd Street and repaired 11 manholes. After talking with Rural American yesterday afternoon, the week of the 6th, we'll start slip lining. That's what a majority of what our repairs are, is slip lining, with 1,500 feet of cut and replace with new pipe. But just to give you guys a more detailed and a simple, this is what we've done. We repaired one manhole on 42nd, one on 36th, one on 35th, one on 34th, two on 30th, three on 31st, and two on 32nd Street. We're finding a few more problems that wasn't in the original RFP. We are dealing with those as they come up. But we are on schedule. We spoke, like I said, yesterday afternoon. We're gonna meet again first of next week, sit down, have another discussion, see how we're progressing, and possibly talk about going ahead and start weekend work, stuff like that. They understand how important that June 12th deadline is, that we meet that deadline, and not make these people wait any longer for their wastewater. So that's where we are on that phase 1 project. Any questions about that before I move on to the sewer panels? All right then. We got our first set of new lift station panels in. We've got the first one installed at 7th Street. If anybody wants to go by and take a look at it.
What street is it?
7th Street, under the Palms Park, in the parking lot there. We've got that one installed, waiting on Duke Energy to make it hot, and then that would be online power. Next one's gonna be 36th Street, north 36th Street, south of Water Drive. That's gonna be the next one on the list. The one after that is Nanook, and then the one after that is Circle Drive. A lot more simplistic setup. We chose to go the route of installation ourselves, believing that if we have to put them in and do all that ourselves, then there's no reason we don't know these things inside and out. And we don't have to call somebody every time something happens, like we've done in the past. So that's where we are on the panels.
talk a little bit about the panels, what it does for us.
They don't leak. No, I'm kidding. The new panels, I think, Mayor, you said it best a while back when we were going over the cross-connection, control software. You know, we're sure moving up in the world. But what these panels do is it's actually, it's 10,000 times better than it was before. Before an alarm goes off, a buzzer goes off, and we completely relied on Mr. Smith or Mrs. Young to hear that and call us, or somebody see it and call us. These, we don't have to do that anymore. They will notify us through our cell phones and or computers. Look, hey, you got a problem at such and such lift station. It'll give us basic information as far as what to start thinking about as we're coming back to the city to fix the problem. But it's a far cry from where we came from to where we are today. Where's Jerry at? We've, just so you know, that we face that.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Siren to me.
That siren's facing your house.
Thank you.
These are much more up to date, much more technical than the last ones, but much more simplistic. You know, we don't have the 10,000 relays or the 150 start capacitors like the old ones did. So this will definitely simplify things for us and make it easier to long run. Last one, spoke with DOT yesterday about the 36th Street Bridge. They are ready to open the bridge. They've got to come in next week and do some striping and stuff like that. They wanted us to go look at it and see if there was anything that we saw that needed to be changed. I still have time to call Mr. Zach back if there's anything anybody wants to add to that. But the only thing that we could find, there was two questions. One was the old wooden guardrail that was around the outside edges. Well, according to their plans, it was something that we installed years ago and it wasn't in the plans to be rebuilt, which isn't a big deal. We can put them back ourselves. It'll take all of a day to do that if that's what we wanted to do. The second thing was, well, has anybody seen the bridge? Has anybody looked at it? You know, when you come up to the bridge, you got the sides of it, the side rows, if you will, the concrete, and it's got those, it's angled up. We've asked that they either paint those yellow or some sort of reflective color at night for visual aid, because that just looks like somebody can go for a ride. But beyond that, the bridge looked fine. We crawled under it, we crawled across it, over top of it, everything but through it. And we called them up and let them know that we were happy with it. Other than put some striping on the asphalt, and if we could do something about the visual aids on the angle. And I think that's all I got.
Question? Thank you, Phil. Dan, go ahead.
Okay, so mine is the task order that you all approved for the sewer repairs bidding for the citywide. We did not include inspection in that because we didn't know the extent of the damage. That was part of the task order, was to analyze it, design, and get it out for bid. That being said, we are doing inspection on the job, so for the purposes of keeping it clean, I just wanted to add that, have you all, if you concur, approved to add construction inspection to that task order. It will not change the fee. We're gonna keep the fee as is. We're actually doing well. We're kind of under budget, so we'll only bill what we use, but there's still enough in that budget that we could proceed with the inspection, so it doesn't change the price, but just add that to the scope of work.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't change the price.
If I just, for 1 second, having that inspector out there helping with all this has been it's helped out a lot on our end.
Is that Caleb?
It's Jeff Hynut.
Okay.
Caleb is also helping with the sewer project. He's keeping track of the day-to-day work and any changes.
I'm glad that you got some help.
Yeah, it's nice.
Just
We
want you
both
to
got some help.
Well, I know, but I mean,
Yeah.
you have been a rock in terms of staying on top of all that is happening here. It takes a lot of paperwork and all to spend that much money.
So, Tina, are you gonna prepare a one-page amendment? and
Yeah,
You
and I'll
want
just-
the mayor to have authorization to go ahead and sign it, so?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good deal.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else from anyone? Before we leave? Go ahead.
I looked back at the the personal property, demolition issue under the Kaiser King contract. It's all priced out very well in the RFP, so we've got pricing to rely on. It looks like, and I don't have the signed task order, but I think I have the last version of the task order. We excluded that type of work from their original task order. We should, and we can make it work today, because I know this needs to happen quickly. We should pick a reasonable number for a not to exceed, prepare a very short task order, and provide authorization for the mayor to sign it and probably get that done the next day or two. Ina or Tanya, do you have any rough idea of a number that makes sense for those? And that doesn't have to be just those 9 houses, if eventually there's gonna be more houses.
No, we'll get with Mark though and get the number. I think he has to look at the properties.
Yeah, it's a
know what
cubic yard
yeah.
pricing, so it just depends how big the jobs are.
I mean, it's still the cubic yard pricing that's in the, and we didn't, I think we pulled out the task order demo originally because it wasn't approved by FEMA. So we were
Yeah,
trying to,
that makes
you
sense.
know, dot our i's and cross our t's, but it's, still part of that RFP. So we'll make sure that we get a task order to the mayor, with that additional not to exceed price.
Okay. Jerry, go ahead.
Me? I was just wondering if the city is going to rent the property that's being used by the lumberyard that used to be the civic center, and are we going to just not rent city property, or could we sell city property?
Yeah, we can sell it, that's what we're doing a lot of land.
Well, my question is, I've had several people ask me, and I'm surprised that nobody else around the table has noticed that, I don't know if it's Mr. Cathy or Lee Cathy who's using the Civic Center property for storing inventory. And if it's okay with everybody else, it's okay with me. So, I've just had a few people who aren't, I know, Cathy supporters of any kind, say something to me, and that's basically the kind of people that talk to me about it. And I don't know, you know, what does anybody else think? Am I out on a limb here, talking about something that's not, totally not important, or is not gonna be concerned with other citizens in Mexico Beach? I know if I had wanted to use it for an ice cream shop or something, I'd been shot down real quick. Any comments from anybody? We just gonna let it go? Are we gonna rent property, or let anybody that wants to use city property, like our other lots that are for sale, on La Lane, they could go out there and camp if they want to? I don't get it.
Is it a short term or is it a long term use?
Well, nobody knows because nobody's talked to the city about it.
I think at least they should ask permission.
Well, I think it'd be nice, yes, to ask permission. All for quiet room. You know, I think some people in this room would agree with me that if she was on another foot somewhere, we'd be talking about renting the property, or leasing the property, or at least having some conversation with the people that are using the property. Now, there are people here that just go totally berserk when a certain person goes out on the sand illegally. He's had a business on the sand for years, but if he's seen illegally out there running in his truck, they just go crazy. So there's a few things that do upset people in town. Am I upset by it? I'm not gonna lose supper tonight over this. But I just think it's somebody's obligation, be it the mayor's or be it Tanya's, to ask some questions about what's going on. Obviously.
Question.
Sure.
Have we got plans to rebuild the civic center on that piece of property or what?
I hope not. I'd like to see the city sell that property myself. Or at least rent it to somebody, and rent it to lease, fine with me. But I just, I've already said what I need to say.
Anybody else? I wanna say to the chief, I haven't publicly met the unfortunate situation that our department, you and our other policemen found themselves in. That's not something that happens in our city. And, we're glad that everything worked out the way it did. Sorry for what we went through, but that cannot be a pleasant experience to go through under any circumstances. So, I wanted to acknowledge that.
Thanks, sir.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
Sure.
Second. Thank you.